What's up, everybody? Tom Pelissero here with Judd Zulgad at Lambeau Field. Shortly after, Judd, the Vikings season comes to an end, 24-10 loss to the Green Bay Packers. And before we get to the nuts and bolts of a very strange day, to say the least, let's look at the overview of the season. You go from 3-13 to 10-6. You have, I believe it's the fourth youngest roster in the NFL. You beat every team in your division. You make the playoffs in a year where realistically even the people within that building didn't think that this was going to happen. Right. They were a year ahead of pace. It's raised the expectations for next season. Body of work, you have to consider this Viking season a success, and it is a shame that it came down to something as bizarre as Christian Ponder not being able to make the start, and Joe Webb, a guy who hasn't thrown a regular season pass this year, having to go out and make a start in a playoff.
And how weird was it, Tom, that the entire season, one of the things the Vikings did was any talk of a quarterback change, a quarterback controversy, was always basically completely downplayed. Les Frazier did everything he could for 17 weeks of this season to make it quite clear that Christian Ponder and not Joe Webb, not anybody else, was this team's quarterback. And then it comes down to the playoff game. The Vikings finally get here, Lambeau Field, and Joe Webb is your starting quarterback. But you're right, the season is a success. No matter what happened, I think really going into that last Packer game, the season was a success, 10 victories. Les Frazier should get a contract extension. As you wrote, really no assistant coaches should be in trouble. This is going to be some stability around Winter Park that we have not seen the past two off seasons.
Well, and you talk about the assistant coaches, too. I don't think this was Bill Musgrave's best day. You look at, they came out on the opening series. They appeared to have the Packers on their heels. They ran 3 read option type of plays, and all of a sudden the next 4 drives, we didn't see any of it. They tried to have Joe Webb be a drop-back passer. They tried to run their offense. I understand you only have X number of Joe plays. You're not practicing those on a weekly basis because you haven't been putting it in. You haven't used the Blazer package the entire season, but you lost a game to the Washington Redskins earlier this year at FedEx Field in which they, in essence, ran 3 plays against you the whole game.
Well, and what we saw from Joe Webb last year was very, very simple. I mean, this isn't hard to figure. Joe Webb came in against Detroit and Washington last year and basically ran whatever you want to call it, the Joe Webb offense. It wasn't Bill Musgrave's ideal offense. You would have thought the Vikings, they knew that Ponder throughout this week might not be able to play. You would have thought that Bill Musgrave would have had a better plan, and seemingly Bill Musgrave's plan was the same plan that he had in the preseason, which to me is inexcusable because it's asking Joe Webb to be something he's not, which is an NFL quarterback who can manage a game. It made no sense, but let's get to the nuts and bolts of a weird day because this was a really odd day.
Yeah.
Christian Ponder, we knew he was hurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was sort of gamesmanship. Tuesday you asked him about the injury, and he said no big deal.
Right.
And then on Wednesday I went to practice, and Leslie Frazier said after practice, hey, Ponder didn't take part in all practice. We're hoping he can do more tomorrow. People asked, are you concerned? I mean, Leslie basically offered this up.
Mm-hmm.
By Thursday he was saying, hey, he still hasn't taken part in a lot of practice. So the bells and whistles were going off a little bit, but I don't think any of us were sitting there saying Christian Ponder was not going to play in this game.
And from hearing it from Morgan Burnett, nobody in the Packers locker room was thinking about it either.
No, they weren't. And so after tonight's game, Ponder comes out, he throws 10 lob passes, lobs.
Before the game,
right. Pre-game warm-ups. Ponder admitted after the game that was as hard as he could throw the football. He was basically lobbing the football, and we got to look at his arm for the first time after the game, and it was black and blue. The back of his arm is black and blue. He had a wrap on the arm. He said it is a deep tricep bruise. Here's the interesting thing, and I'm curious if the National Football League cares about this. They listed it all week long as an elbow. Ponder claims his elbow's not hurt. Now, I don't completely believe him.
Well, here's the thing.
But there's more to it than that.
Well, number 1, the bruise extends to the elbow. Number 2, he does have fluid in the elbow, from what I was told, that they at least had given consideration to draining out. They didn't end up doing that. That's something he's probably sensitive to because he did have that happen so many times down at Florida State.
Sure.
He's had arm issues, elbow issues before. Triceps, elbow, it's not as though they listed him with a foot. I don't think that the NFL is going to be particularly concerned about the precise diagnosis. But again, there's a lot of people though who look at this and say, how is a bruise keeping you out of a playoff game? If that's all the harder he could throw, then I don't blame him or the coaching staff at all for saying this isn't happening. But how does it get to this point, Judd? How do you go through the entire week? They had, just some of the absurdity of this entire thing. First of all, they had to stay at a Holiday Inn Express. They actually did stay at a Holiday Inn Express in Neenah because
and
their
Joe
normal...
Webb, by the way, he didn't become an NFL quarterback by staying in a Holiday Inn Express.
Their normal hotel was booked, but so this morning they've got Christian Ponder in the pool throwing the football around trying to loosen up his elbow. Do you understand the bizarre nature of this entire thing?
Tom, I've
to
covered
get to this
team
point?
since 2005. This is the Vikings. I mean, really, today was a Vikings day. There's been a lot. Leslie Frazier has done a masterful job of bringing normalcy to this organization, but today was a Minnesota Vikings day. If you are a Minnesota Vikings fan, a follower, today should not surprise you one bit. And today was really the theater of the bizarre when you realized, I mean, first of all, I think all of us thought that Joe Webb, if he played, might come in relief, that Christian Ponder would be active. When they announced that Christian Ponder is inactive, that made it a Minnesota Vikings day.
Yeah, I really thought, just looking at the limited practice time and going back to that game in December of 2011 against Detroit, where he struggled badly after not having any practice reps. He committed 4 turnovers. I thought that might give them a chance to make a real quick hook in this game. I did not see any scenario in which he couldn't be on the field. It's just a strange sequence of events here. And also the fact that the team's never told. Wouldn't you think Leslie Frazier would bring the team together and say, Joe's going to be our guy today?
Hold on a second, because I was talking to guys in the locker room. Jared Allen said he didn't care that much, and he didn't know until today's game. It's okay. But Chris Cook said he figured it out on Thursday. Antoine Winfield was coy about it. I don't know how much these guys really knew. I mean, some guys didn't know. Some guys don't care. That's the other thing, too. But Cook told me flat out, he said, I looked Thursday and said he's starting. So there were guys who knew this was coming, but it is I don't know if there's, it's a weird day. I'm not sure that I think it's all that unusual how it transpired. It is just a little bit weird, though, that Christian Ponder's arm looked as bad as it did, and nobody really knew it.
Well, they knew that. I mean, the team knew that.
The team knew
but
that.
They were looking at him and expecting he was going to be able to work his way toward game day.
But it didn't really get out there. And here's the thing, too. I tweeted this during the game. There's no doubt in my mind that if this was Brett Favre, he would have played, okay? But Christian Ponder's not Brett Favre. And I'm serious. People have different pain thresholds. So I can sit here and blame Ponder and say he should play, he didn't play through this pain, he should have played through this pain. But in fairness to Christian Ponder, he's not Brett Favre. I saw a PR guy once help Brett Favre put his shirt on after he had played. Mm-hmm. A PR guy today helped Ponder put his shirt on. He hadn't played. They're different people.
Adrian Peterson rushes 22 times for 99 yards in this game. It didn't necessarily feel as though he ended up with 99 yards. It was a lot of hard yards. You weren't able to extend drives by making things happen on third down.
Right.
Joe Webb didn't really have a whole lot of Joe Webb moments either. He didn't have a whole lot of things where he's dropping back to pass and then gets out. He took sacks. He somehow got away with throwing the football toward the line of scrimmage a couple of times.
Gotta stop that next year.
Got called for one grounding penalty. I didn't think that the receivers had a terrible day. They didn't get open, but it's the Vikings receivers. That shouldn't really surprise anybody at this point.
He was more a focal point of the game today than he has been a lot this season. He's not.
He stopped running on the interception.
He's just not good.
Brandon Fusco had a tough go at times against B.J. Raji. On the defensive side of the ball, the Vikings defense probably played about as well as you could possibly expect on a day where Aaron Rodgers is 23 of 33 for 274 yards and a touchdown.
Interesting in the fourth quarter that A.J. Jefferson was benched. He started the game actually in the base at the left corner. Antoine Winfield played with that broken right hand, and Winfield did confirm what you had said during the course of the game, which was he couldn't jam with the right hand, so he was trying to get guys with the left hand. Josh Robinson replaces A.J. Jefferson during the fourth quarter. That was an interesting move. Defensively, they played okay. And it's Aaron Rodgers. When Aaron Rodgers is going well on drives, Aaron Rodgers will pick you apart, and he did that. Ultimately, though, I think the most frustrating thing to me was the mismanagement of the offensive game plan. I mean, if I had to pick one thing where you looked at it and said, what are you doing? Bill Musgrave has had some really good games this year. I mean, Bill's an odd guy, right? He's sort of a quiet guy. So he's not a guy that people look at in the media and say, oh, boy, I love Bill Musgrave. But Bill Musgrave had some pretty good games as far as play calling.
I think going all the way back to when they lost Percy Harvin.
I don't get today.
It's going to be a difficult situation for your coordinator and for your quarterback anytime you have it transpire like this where you've got one guy who, even though he's not practicing, you expect to be out there, and all of a sudden you get to game day and he can't. That's what it comes down to. We'll never know what the game plan would have been had Christian Ponder been in there.
Okay, so are you telling me, though, that it should have been managed better and they should have figured out earlier that Ponder couldn't have played? I mean, because it's
not even necessarily that I'm placing blame here.
They kept hoping. And when I saw Ponder's arm, I said to myself, you guys should have said on about Wednesday he ain't playing.
But I'm sure that he told them all week, I'll play, I'll get better. And the thing you do when you have that type of injury is you rest it. You ice it. You try to get the swelling to go down. It sounds as though he made another leap yesterday. Wasn't able to make enough of one to be able to play in this game.
He's throwing a Holiday Inn pool. How about that? How Viking is that? They're in a Holiday Inn.
We got a lot to sort out if and when we make it back through the freezing drizzle and flurries.
Dive in the pool, guys, and throw the football.
He's Judd, I'm Tom. Full Vikings coverage, as always, 1500ESPN.com. We'll see you.